Welcome back, everyone. So, this is the second part of the ongoing coverage on the tragic events that took place January 2nd in Chicago, Illinois, with ALLESHA Newell and the tragic passing of her two children, ages 2 and 7 months, and the tragic attack, knife wielding attack that she perpetrated upon her 70-year-old grandfather. A lot more information is not now known about ALLESHA Newell from statements from her family, friends, those who knew her, and from the shelter. But at this time, it needs to be clarified that the Salvation Army has yet to release any formal statement about ALLESHA Newell and what services she may have been there for or may not have been there for. They can't even confirm that was a client there because of confidentiality agreements that they must have in place. They can't confirm that people are even members of a domestic violence shelter for good reasons. A lot of abusers, if they could find out that their victim is in a shelter, they would just go to the shelter and and drag them out and end them. And that's the last thing you need is to ruin the confidentiality of people who are seeking to get away from violence. In ALLESHA Newell's case, she wasn't fleeing violence. She wasn't fleeing an abuser, verbally, mentally, physically. She wasn't fleeing that. According to Zira Newell, ALLESHA's mother, ALLESHA had been suffering mental health issues on and off pretty much her entire life. She was only 20 years old, but she had been erratic, definitely erratic the last 6 months. Now, she had a 2 year old and a 7 month old. So shortly afterwards, she may have been suffering from postpartum depression from after the birth of her 7 month old, but she never received any treatment for it. She never received any treatment before from her erratic behavior after 2 year old Johntavis was born. And her 7 month old was name was Ameer. What is known for sure right now is that about an hour and a half before this tragic series of events took place, she showed up at her grandfather's apartment complex there in the waterfront district. Did he know she was coming? We don't know. But she showed up there. She had told the counselors and those who volunteer at the Salvation Army that he was going to watch the two children while she was going to come back that day, January 2nd. Now, she had left there December 30th and said she was going to come back on the 2nd to have so they were going to get her help on her mental health. And she needed someone to watch her children for 24 to 48 hours. And she had told them that her grandfather was going to watch them. Was it prearranged? We don't know. It may have been something that was just in her head. But she showed up there anyways, about an hour and a half before these tragic events took place. What is known at this time is that before she attacked her children, she attacked her 70-year-old grandfather and stabbed him 10 times, leaving him for dead in the living room on the floor by the sofa. He had defensive wounds on his hands and arms, a stab wound to the chest, stomach, and to the side of the face. Sometime after that, she threw scalding hot water on her 7 month old Ameer, laid him out in the bathtub, and unfortunately, this is going to get gruesome. Laid him out in the bathtub and stabbed him 19 times in the body, stomach, chest, and head. 19 times. This is factual information released from the Chicago Police Department, ladies and gentlemen. This is not something that I'm guessing at. This is directly from their actual statement. Then she took an extreme amount of some illegal and some prescribed medication, sleeping pills, and muscle relaxants, along with illegal drugs, and then smashed out the window to the 11th floor apartment with a chair. Then threw her son out the window. According to eyewitnesses on the ground and surveillance CCTV camera from across the street from the parking garage. After she threw her son out the window, there is a delay of about 2 to 3.5 minutes in there before you see ALLESHA Newell step into the window and then throw herself out the window. On the way down, she, I guess, faith, got in the way, and she hit a window washing scaffolding unit on the way down that broke her fall, and she will survive because of hitting that scaffolding. Her 70-year-old grandfather was rushed into emergency surgery. He is currently in critical condition. He did somewhat come awake to know where he is. He wasn't able to give a formal statement, but they then decided to put him in a drug-induced coma while his body heals from the injuries that he received. He is expected to live. ALLESHA Newell, from her injuries, was also brought into surgery to bandage her up, put her back together again. And she is also currently in critical condition, but awake. And she has been arraigned on 2 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. So that's the facts right now, along with the statements released from those who knew her and had seen her at the shelter and had talked to her at the shelter. It needs to be known instead that ALLESHA Newell never made any statements at all at the shelter to anyone who was there as a client or as a case manager, crisis manager. No one. She never made any threats of violence towards herself or the children. She was extremely upset when she first got there, demanded and wanted help, and didn't want her children anymore, and begged for somebody to take them from her. But after talking with those who volunteer there and work with the Salvation Army Crisis Shelter, she calmed down to the point where they didn't think she was in jeopardy of hurting herself or her children either. She said that she was going to drop her children off at her grandfather's and come back and be there on January 2nd to enter into a mental health evaluation. She never would return. According to Ameer Newell, this is all news to her. Why she would bring the children to her 70-year-old grandfather instead of bringing them to Ameer Newell, her mother's home, which was closer than her grandfather's, we don't know. We may never know. And the one thing that is overwhelming that keeps on coming back is statements from Ameer Newell, who very clearly said in her interview with Fox Channel 6 Now, Chicago affiliate, and WGN TV, was that she told her that she would take care of those children, but she didn't come back for grandmother to watch the 2 children. She went to the 70-year-old grandfather's home that she had told the shelter that was going to watch the children while she went to have an evaluation. Either way, Both of her children are now deceased. And the question remains, did Alicia Newell mentally know what she was doing? I know so many people want to quickly judge and say she must have known what she was doing, but you obviously have never been in a, or known somebody going through a mental health crisis if you say things like that or even believe something like that. Did she mentally know right from wrong when she was doing this? We don't know. She could have mentally been completely in a dissociative episode at that time and not knowing what she was doing at all. Legally, she may never know why she did this. Around her, people have said that, who've known her, she's always been a wild one. She's always done things that are a little bit erratic and behavior wise, but nobody ever saw her as somebody who may want to harm herself or her children. And there is a very good likelihood that after her 7-month old Ameer was born, that she may have been dealing with postpartum depression on top of that, because that's when people said, who know her, said her behavior became even more erratic. She was showed all the signs from what they said without actually saying postpartum depression, that she showed all the signs of someone suffering from postpartum depression, and she never got any help because she's poor. Unfortunately, this is not just me making this up, but she was poor and she was African American. And in the inner city, if you're poor and of a minority, you get even less mental health coverage than other people. That's the facts. You can't force people into a united coverage, a healthcare coverage, and expect that, look, now they have health coverage, they can go get mental health. Those services are not offered in poor neighborhoods. If you don't have a car, if you don't have transportation, and if you're looking at a huge copay in order to get help, it's hard to get the help. And these are the facts, ladies and gentlemen. This is the world we live in. Did Alicia Newell know what she was doing was wrong? I'm not making a defense for her. I'm just giving you the facts of the case. There very well may have been an overwhelming issue here that nobody is going to be able to crack into and look and find the answer to. But thank you for joining me today.